Thank you for joining in to the 2022 budget presentation of First Church of Christ Congregational in Suffield. This is a joint venture of the Asset Management Ministry Team and Church Council. This presentation was prepared as a joint effort by Asset Management and a small group of Church Council leaders. The presentation is intended to accomplish several goals. A, to present a balanced budget for 2022 for approval at the annual meeting. B, to continue to inform and educate the congregation about the realities of our financial life together in a manner that is both understandable and transparent. C, to remind everyone that a budget is a plan for a future time period based upon the best information and analysis available at the present time. D, to encourage all members and friends to pledge their financial support to First Church. We have historically received a great deal of financial support from individuals or families who may have hesitated or forgotten to complete an annual pledge commitment. It is very helpful to receive that financial support throughout the year, but not having the pledges up front makes our budget planning process quite uncertain. E, to address staffing questions, i.e., a second ministerial position, which were raised at last year's annual meeting and led to the work of the Visioning Task Group. F, to give the congregation time to review the budget materials in advance. And G, to allow for the formulation and submission of questions in advance so that they can be researched and answered efficiently at the annual meeting. First Church's proposed 2022 budget was ratified by Church Council at its January 11, 2022 meeting. This is a balanced budget, which was the result of a considerable effort by the Asset Management Ministry Team and the members of Church Council. In fact, the draft budget that was presented to Council in December of 2021 was not a balanced budget, but rather showed a $97,000 shortfall. We will describe the issues that were encountered during the budgeting process and will explain how those issues were resolved and how we remedied the $97,000 shortfall to achieve this balanced budget. The biggest factor contributing to the initial shortfall was Council's view that the budget, to the extent possible, should reflect First Church's commitment to the vision that was outlined in the Visioning Task Group's report in June of 2021. That report was largely the result of a question that was raised during our annual meeting last January about why the 2021 budget did not include funding for an associate minister position. In response to that question, the Visioning Task Group was created to consider not only an associate minister position, but also other possible positions that would further the ministries of First Church. The Visioning Task Group's report identified 6 such positions: a part-time associate minister focusing on youth and intergenerational ministries, a director of music and worship arts. In this regard, Amy Pott became our director of worship arts on January 1st. This position did not materially affect the budget, which historically has included funding for a minister of music. A part-time building facilities manager to oversee maintenance of the church building, as well as the parsonage and the Mather House. Again, our budgets historically have included funding for maintenance, but the oversight function has been primarily a volunteer position. A part-time media technical director / audiovisual technician. This position is critical in supporting the live streaming and technical aspects of worship services. A part-time child care provider to provide young child care during Sunday services. And a part-time treasurer. The treasurer function has been provided in recent years on a volunteer basis, and that will continue in 2022. The asset management team estimated the additional costs of fully funding these visionary positions in 2022 would be approximately $60,000. Accordingly, this amount was included in the initial draft 2022 budget so that Council could assess the feasibility of moving forward with the Visioning Task Group's recommendations. However, Council also recognized that because these positions will take some time to fill, it was unnecessary to fully fund these positions for a full year in 2022. Accordingly, the line item for visionary positions in the proposed 2022 budget was reduced to $30,000, which significantly reduced the amount of the shortfall reflected in the draft budget. Council will continue to assess and prioritize the proposed visionary positions as we move forward in 2022. We recognize that the Visioning Task Group's recommendations represent a long-term goal that likely will take some time to fully implement. We also want to make sure that any positions that we do fill are sustainable. That is, that we can support the funding for any new positions not only in our 2022 budget, but in future budgets as well. At the time of the December draft budget, we had only received 65 pledges, totaling $192,528. This was 18 pledges short of the number we had received in 2021. Asset Management hoped that we could generate about $30,000 of additional pledging to help balance the budget. The Generosity Ministry team went back to work, and in the next month, an additional 6 pledges were received, adding $13,500 and bringing the total pledge income up to $206,000. There is still a chance for more pledge activity, and that would provide some more flexibility in the budget moving forward. The Asset Management team entered discussions with the trustees in December about the possibility of increasing support for the operating budget provided by the First Church Endowment. The trustees were initially very receptive to considering this request, given the strong year coming to a close in the financial markets. As they completed their year-end review and reporting, the trustees decided to adjust the endowment spending policy on a one-year basis in order to provide approximately $25,000 of additional unrestricted operating budget support. This was a 55% increase over the previous year. Finally, over the past 4 years, First Church has been fortunate to have annual operating surpluses, which have accumulated to $115,402, serving as our emergency or rainy day fund. As part of the balanced budget presented to Council for ratification, the Asset Management Ministry team needed to use 29.5% of that accumulated surplus to balance the budget. As we proceed to look over the budget on the next slides, these budget balancing changes will be illustrated. This slide shows the balanced 2022 budget presented to and ratified by the Church Council. The text and numbers are quite small on this slide, so we will highlight a couple of important points and then move on to look at the data in 2 more readable pieces. The blue column shows the ratified budget numbers which will be presented for approval at the annual meeting. Notice the 0 bottom line representing a balanced budget. The pink column shows the final actual operating budget numbers for the year ending December 31st, 2021. Notice the bottom line of 2021 shows a surplus of $15,317, which added to our accumulated surplus, bringing that total to $115,402 over the past 4 years, from 2018 through 2021. You can see that number shown in the green box at the lower left. As you heard and saw previously, we dipped into that accumulated surplus in order to build a balanced 2022 operating budget. On the right side, you can see pie charts which show the breakdown in major categories for both the income and expenses in the presented 2022 budget. This spreadsheet shows the income side of the budget. We will be looking at several boxes in the blue column and their explanations to the right. The current pledges in hand total $206,028. This number represents 71 pledges, which can be compared to the 83 pledges we received in 2021. The average pledge amount in 2022 is $2,902, which represents an average increase of more than 20% per pledge. This is a tremendous step up for our financial supporters. In the final month of budget development, we had hoped to generate $30,000 from the outstanding past pledgers. To date, we have received 6 pledges totaling $13,500. We are still hopeful as we encourage more pledgers to step forward. The transfers box shows a very large increase. The biggest piece of that increase is the $25,943 increase in the trustee unrestricted support, created by a one-time adjustment in the annual endowment spending policy. The trustees have managed the endowment to an all-time high as a result of very strong financial markets in 2021, and they felt that they should provide this support to First Church operations. At the same time, the trustees would like to encourage all members and friends to strongly consider supporting the church endowment in their planned giving and estate planning. The $16,000 in the other giving box represents unsolicited gifts and includes donations which are not pledged. Most of these donations are made online through Vanco by people who do not make a pledge. This is a conservative estimate given recent history. We have averaged over $22,000 of this type of giving over the past 4 years. However, we feel a need to be cautious and conservative here. Once again, we would like to convert this type of giving into actual pledges to remove uncertainty from our budget process. Finally, the budget is balanced by using $34,083 of rainy day money from our accumulated surplus. This amounts to 29.5% of that money and will leave a balance of $81,319 of surplus money at the end of 2022. Obviously, there will be pressure to find other solutions in future years so that we don't exhaust the accumulated surplus, the rainy day fund. Now we will move on to the expense side of the budget. There are 4 changes on the expense side which we need to highlight. The first is the visionary positions line, which was discussed previously. The total of this line has been reduced from $60,000 down to $30,000, a reduction of $30,000. This reduction represents a consideration of budgetary pressures and the timing of searches and hires, tempered by the need to ensure that any positions added will be sustainable in future years. There is much work which needs to be done by council and others to define and fill such new positions. The second line is worship, specifically the worship arts lines, formerly known as music. The significant increase here results from the movement of the section leader's budget from staffing to worship. Section leaders will be needed to rebuild our choral music program. Other worship arts lines will be analyzed throughout the year as our new director builds a revitalized program. The third line is property insurance under building expenses. Our premium has risen by 15% for 2022, primarily as a function of our renovations and the strong upward cost pressure in the industry, driven by natural disasters and the increasing costs of reconstruction. Take note that the commercial insurance in the state of Connecticut saw an average increase of 16%, so we did pretty well. We have chosen to not increase our deductible from $2,500 to $5,000 because it would only save us $252 in premium. Also in the building expenses, you can notice a significant increase in utilities cost. We have been saving money on utilities over the past 2 years because of building closures, and this is just movement back to normal levels. There is certainly some worry here due to upward movement in energy costs predicted and stimulated by market forces. The last line of increase is in other expenses, where we have added $12,000 of expected debt service for our capital campaign line of credit. We expect the campaign to wind down in early 2022. The remaining balance on the line of credit, after all outstanding campaign pledges have been paid, should be no more than $100,000. You may recall that the campaign was approved with the understanding that there may be a remaining balance as high as $300,000. Our current line of credit balance is $90,000, with over $50,000 of pledges still payable. Though through 2021, we have paid all campaign debt service out of campaign finances. As of 2022, with the closing down of the campaign, we will now be establishing a term loan as part of the operating budget. So with all of the adjustments on the income and expense side that we've just reviewed, we are able to recommend this balanced budget ratified by Church Council for approval at the annual meeting on January 30th, 2022. So here is the overall 2022 budget sheet again. Please take some time reviewing this presentation. We hope you will find it useful and informative. Please forward any questions you may have through the link that has been provided in the witness. Having your questions in advance will allow us to answer them in a thoughtful, researched manner at the annual meeting, instead of an incomplete and extemporaneous manner to which we have resorted in past years. Thank you so much for your time. There is one more optional slide that you can view if you have an interest. It is a 5-year look at First Church pledging, which may help you to understand the pressure which has developed on our operating budget in recent years. If you would like to view it, just wait a short bit. If not, just close out the presentation. Don't forget to please send in your questions. We'll see you at the annual meeting on January 30th. This slide shows the pledging history for the past 4 years, plus the current data for 2022. In the top section, we see the total amount pledged, the number of pledges, and the average pledge amount. You can see some trends. Total amount pledged has dropped significantly, 25% from 2018 through 2021, with an uptick of 6% in 2022. The number of pledges has dropped more significantly, 33% down from 2018 to 2021, and dropped another 14% in 2022, for a total drop of 43% over 5 years. This alarming trend is a result of pledgers dying or leaving First Church, offset by new pledgers joining. The happy news is that the average pledge has increased by 37% over the same 5-year period. In the bottom section, we show the non-pledged giving, which is primarily donations that we can identify from people who have not made a pledge. Most of these donations come online through Vanco. As we have explained previously, these donations are important to our overall finances. They have averaged over $22,000 per year, which is 9% of our total given. But given the fact that they are not pledged in advance, we cannot count on them and build them into our budget with any certainty. That is why we estimate them conservatively in the budgeting process. Converting these non-pledged donations into pledged donations will help us do a much better job in future budgeting processes. If you have any questions about the data included on this sheet, feel free to send them in through the link provided in the witness. Thank you very much.